Hi, my name is Schwartz. I'm the author of this book, Broadcast Hysteria, Orson Welles' War of the Worlds, and the Art of Fake News. I'm also a graduate student in history here at Princeton University, and we are standing outside the old FitzRandolph Observatory, built in 1934. So in the infamous War of the Worlds broadcast of 1938 that my book is about, when they refer to an observatory at Princeton, this has to be the one that they're talking about. And we're here today to discuss this piece of artwork inspired by the building that we stand in front of, by artist Robert Hummel, the third in his series of images depicting imagined scenes in and around the Princeton, New Jersey, and Grover's Mill area, inspired by the broadcast. And this one, as I said, deals with the Princeton Observatory, as you can see, under attack by Martian invaders. Of course, the War of the Worlds broadcast almost exactly 81 years ago, as we're speaking, on October 30th, 1938, Orson Welles and his company of Mercury Theater on the Air decided to put on an imaginative, Halloween-themed, scary radio broadcast. In this case, drawing inspiration from the broadcast journalism and contemporary news reportage of that time to adapt the H.G. Wells classic novel about a Martian invasion of the planet Earth. For H.G. Wells, he set his invasion in England. Orson Welles and his Mercury Theater Company, when they were updating the story to the present day, they moved it to the United States, and scriptwriter Howard Koch, who was in charge of adapting the book into a script, happened to have a New Jersey road map, dropped the point of his pencil with his eyes closed, and it landed about I believe 10 miles from where we're currently standing in Grover's Mill, New Jersey, maybe a little closer than that. Koch had never heard of the town, but he liked the sound of the name. He could see that it was located near Princeton University. He knew that one of the main characters of the show was going to be an astronomer, the character played by Orson Welles. And so Koch decided this would be the perfect place to set the Martian invasion, that he could use the observatory. I don't actually honestly know whether he knew that there was an observatory here in 1938, but he decided if there's a university, there must be an observatory, and that's where my main character is going to work. So the character that Orson Welles plays, and actually, funnily enough, if you drive in the broadcast, they talk about going from the observatory to the landing site in Grover's Mill that is now commemorated with a monument. But they talk about making the 11 miles from Princeton in 10 minutes. And I have actually driven from this observatory to the Martian landing site, and I can tell you that you can actually make it in 10 minutes. But as you make that drive, you sort of cross Highway 1, and one of the streets that you pass is Pearson Avenue, I believe. But it's Pearson spelled the same as Welles' character. So I wonder if when Howard Koch was looking at his road map, that may be where he got the name, because that name does not come from the H.G. Wells novel. But as I said, Koch was adapting the book, setting the story in this part of the world, because they knew they wanted the Martians eventually to head north and conquer New York City. They set one of the key opening scenes in this building, more or less. It's the scene where we are introduced both to two really of the main protagonists of the story. Professor Pearson, as I mentioned before, played by Orson Welles, and then a radio journalist named Carl Phillips, who was played by the great radio actor Frank Reddick. And it is through the Carl Phillips character, as they are here listening to this, the first sound we hear is this ticking of it sounds like a clock, but that's supposed to be the workings of the observatory machinery. And Carl Phillips is interviewing Pearson about these gas explosions that people have been observing on the planet Mars, and they don't know what it is. And Pearson, being rather secure in what he thinks of his view of the world, I would say, as some academics perhaps can be. But he sort of discounts the idea that this could be anything that anybody needs to worry about, or it's just gas explosions, it's nothing to worry about. And then they get a report that, just as I said, a few ways from here, a meteor has landed, and they're going to go check it out, because it's a rare thing for an astronomer to see a freshly fallen meteorite. And then when they get to the Martian landing site, it turns out to be not a natural formation at all, but a Martian spacecraft that is about to release some of these fighting machines that we see depicted in the painting by Robert Hummel. Now these craft are depicted in the original H.G. Wells novel. The notion of tripod machines, shooting these sort of heat ray laser beams. The first inkling of that we have in the broadcast is when the first Martian machine that comes out of this landing craft decides to open fire and vaporize poor people, including our friend Carl Phillips, in sort of the manner that you can see depicted here, throwing fire by means of I believe the phrase they use is a polished parabolic mirror. And from then on, the Martian machines, one lands in Grover's Mill, a few others land around the area. They get together, they march north and conquer New York City. So the scene that you see depicted here, and in the two other paintings that Robert has done, one at the Martian landing site itself in Grover's Mill, which is the first, but these are not scenes that are necessarily shown or imagined in the broadcast itself, but more creative riffs on the main themes and the main incidents in the story. So, as I said, the Martian machines, the Princeton Observatory, the use of the heat ray, the falling, what look like meteors but are really more alien craft, I imagine. Those are all elements that you hear depicted in the show that are sort of vividly imagined. And of course I love the little details, both the reference to Princeton Observatory on the car, but especially the jack-o'-lanterns on the steps there of the observatory, because the broadcast aired the night before Halloween, and it's also referred to in the show that this is happening what would have been 1 year for them in the future in 1939, but on the night before Halloween. And then you've got Mars up there in the far right-hand corner, noticeable for its red color, but as the ultimate source of all this mayhem that is being rained down on the east coast of the United States. So it's another great entry in the series, and a wonderful sort of imagining of what what still to this day I think ranks as the most famous and most influential radio show of all time, and something that a lot of people, myself included, like to come back to around this time of the year, around Halloween time, because there's no better way to celebrate Halloween than to go back to the Martian invasion of 1938. So if you want to read more, Broadcast Hysteria is the book that I published a few years back that gives you the whole story of the broadcast and how it affected Orson Welles' life, how it affected our media environment in the United States down to the present day, and how it had some sequels and some remakes around the world that had even more reverberations in those countries. And if you want to add some pictures to your imaginings of the theater of the mind, start with Robert's series on War of the Worlds. Thank you very much.